Hey, what is up, guys? Evanaldo here. Had a couple ideas. Right now I'm in the car. I had a couple ideas I wanted to talk to you guys about right now. And, I think this is relevant. This is relevant to a lot of crypto YouTubers. This is relevant to, when things change, when interests change. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the importance of being able to reinvent yourself. Now, you look at a lot of big people who stayed relevant for long periods of time. Let's say Taylor Swift, Madonna, Kanye West. I mean, it goes on and on. Even Trump. I mean, obviously what he transitioned from, just being a businessman to reality TV show, game show host to president. It's a big transition. Not saying that was the right thing to do. No opinion on that, but I'm just, in terms of, making more money, being more successful, I think it's debated whether he's really made more money from what he's done, but I couldn't tell you. Who cares? But yeah, you're going to have to reinvent yourself a lot of times. And even after you already are successful, kind of to keep that success, when you first start a business, there's obviously that risk you take. And then you could get, things can get really comfortable, because once you have, the business running, once you have everything going, whether it's, whether you're just day trading by yourself, making money like that, whether you're just, investing or something, or you have, just a simple business or whatever, and it works and you make, enough to make ends meet, maybe live pretty comfortably, you're not a slave to a job anymore. You don't have to wake up at a certain time. You don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time. Sure, you have meetings, sure you have other things, but you have a lot of newfound freedom in your life. And you're pretty grateful for that, at least in the beginning. Like anything else, you get used to it and you're kind of like, what's next? But really, a lot of times you get comfortable with it and you're just, you see how tough things, may have been, see how tough things, kind of are for their average person. And once you have that success, you're like, wow, let's just keep doing, don't take any risks now, just keep doing what I'm doing. And that, I would say, is probably not the best course of action, because, and the reason why is because, let's look at crypto right now. A lot of the crypto YouTube channels, I mean, mine included, get a lot, not a lot less, but I mean, a significant amount less views than they were getting, May of 2021, October of 2021, when things were skyrocketing, getting a lot less views than they were at that point. And, what do you have to do at that point to keep the views? You got to reinvent yourself. You got to find, maybe a new niche. You got to keep trying new things. And you look at, somebody like Taylor Swift, who, she changes things, comes out with, new styles of music. I don't listen to her. It's just one example. It's a very, very big person. And, it's, and a lot of times your fans, your current fans, hate it. They want the old you. But the thing is, to reinvent yourself and keep striving, you got to reinvent yourself. You know what I mean? You got to try new things, and you may alienate some people. Some people may not like you. I mean, the thing I've learned kind of in life overall is that people come and go. People come and go. There's relationships that you have, and they end. Nothing lasts forever. And sometimes it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. At least in my opinion, it's better to have those experiences and have the people go, to have that and then lose it, rather than to have never had it at all. Of course, if you lose everything, you're going to be sad, of course, because it was great when you had it. But I feel like once, and that's the thing with the law of attraction too, once you experience something, what it feels like more so. I feel like it's easier to get back there. It's definitely, I think that's 100%. It's easier to get back to where you were. If you make a lot of money and then you lose it all, it's probably, unless you got like some freak thing, like you won the lottery, you know what I mean? Or someone just gave you a ton of money, something like that. I mean, if you started a bit like something where you actually earn the money, or, no matter what you do, there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people who say, oh no, he just got lucky with his business. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that. But, as long as the money wasn't just flat out handed to you, you're probably going to be able to have the means to find a way to get it back. I would think if somebody took away, all that I had, say take away my entire net worth, everything I owned, my YouTube channel, everything, I think I would be able to get where I am now in terms of net worth or whatever relatively quickly. Within a year, I would say, maybe 2 years. It's hard to really say, but I think I'm confident I would be able to get back to that level relatively soon. And Naval Ravikant talks about this. This is an important thing. I mean, you ultimately want, because that's like a true strength too, because, you want to, that's such a strength, because if everything's taken away from you and you're able to get back to where you were in terms of, I don't know, success, or, not just money, but fame, success, whatever, whatever floats your boat, that's really impressive. That's really impressive, at least in my opinion. Now, that's what I would say. That's what I would say. Who knows? I was watching an old video I think Flop and Groper made, and he was talking about, people who, if you have like your plan is to just trade, Bitcoin for a living or whatever, leverage trade Bitcoin for a living. Well, you got to think about, what if the government bans Bitcoin? What if you can't trade? You know what I mean? What if something happens? You have to be able to reinvent yourself, maybe find a new asset. It's kind of like that. So I think that's really important. It's really important to look at new things. And, that's one of the things too with the education system, with college, I would say, is that they're kind of teaching you stuff that's kind of outdated, because these textbooks, all the things, they're things that are maybe 20 years old, the way it was done. They're not teaching you a lot of times the newest ways to do it. Not entirely true. I mean, there's always new technologies coming out, always new things, but I feel like they're not teaching you the latest a lot of times. And because, I mean, can you leave me a comment if you know, but I don't think you could really study cryptocurrency in college yet. At least maybe there would be a class or something on it. I mean, somebody told me I should like do a master's in it, but I don't think that exists. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does exist, but I don't think, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is something that's been around for, when was Bitcoin? 10 years at least. 2011, I believe. I'm trying to, off the top of my head, 2010, 2011. I don't think it was 2009. I don't think it was that early. I think it was somewhere around there. But yeah, I'm trying to, I know this, but sometimes you don't remember everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's something, it's an $2 trillion asset class right now that's been around for 10 years at least. And I don't think you can major in it just yet. I think our education system is kind of outdated in that respect. And I think ultimately, I've said this before, I think the education system, it teaches you more how to be an employee rather than an entrepreneur, more of how to just be a cog in the system. And you could have a great life that way. I'm not saying you can't. It's not what I want to do. It's not what I've done, but there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think some people have done very, very well with it, especially in the, obviously you probably don't need to be a genius to realize that it's a little bit tougher today, especially in America, to do it that way. Now, it's standard 9 to 5 rather than it was in, maybe the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s. It was different in terms of what their earning potential was, wages, all that. I'm not an expert on those statistics, but I mean, you don't need to do too much research to realize, that's a little bit tougher. So, I mean, look at housing prices, look at inflation right now, inflation at 8%. That's how wages aren't going up that much. Unless you have a business, then you could raise what you charge for your service. You know what I mean? If someone's willing to pay for it, with inflation, you could kind of, stay above water that way. But if you're an employee, you're probably not. You may get a raise, but you're probably not going to, it's not going to be the 8%. And just looking, at prices, everything in South Florida, I mean, in terms of what I'm looking at right now, it really seems like the market's gonna come down a bit more. I think, and I don't have a crystal ball. This is all a game of probability, but it seems, in terms of S&P 500, in terms of crypto, in terms of the housing market, people still outbidding one another on it. I feel like these things are going to be done relatively soon, especially people outbidding houses for over 50K more, or whatever more than the asking price was. That's going to be a thing of the past pretty soon. I think we're going to see probably a bottom out in the summer, I believe, and then a gradual recovery. And in terms of how long, I don't want to talk about too much. We could go 20 years theoretically, without a real recession. I believe things historically, from what was it, 1980, early 80s all the way to 2000, no crazy dip in the Dow or whatever. We could go theoretically, I'd say, till 2030, until 2030 without a major correction. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's an interesting game, but yeah, I mean, you gotta be willing to adapt. You gotta be willing to do new things. I'm sure that you compare it to. I was talking about Tom Brady in one of the previous vlogs I did, and now he's not retiring. So I was talking about how it's kind of like the beginning of a new era. Not yet, not yet. But the other thing about Tom Brady or any very good athlete that had a crazy long career, I'm sure the way the game was played, 20 years ago when Brady started playing, it was different. I'm sure he had to adapt a lot over the years and learned a ton of new things, especially now on the sidelines. We're looking at iPads. It's a different situation. Things are always changing. You really need to adapt, and you really need to be on top of your game. And the thing too is when you have success, especially when you have success, premature success, when you're young, when you're, in your 20s or whatever, you tend to be maybe a little bit more lazy. I remember like before I was, real successful, I used to always be listening to audiobooks, as many as I could by Robert Kiyosaki, anything money making, any investing, all the stuff. When I was living in LA during the lockdowns, all the stuff I could find, in terms of investing or making money, I would just listen to all those audiobooks. I would drive around California and just listen to audiobooks and explore California. It was an amazing time, and I learned a lot. And now, once you have success, you're not, you're more lazy. Now you're just watching TV. Now you're just listening to music. You know what I mean? You're not learning as much. So you got to stay in your craft if you really want to keep climbing up the ladder and keep building your business and keep having the success at the rate that you continue to have it. It's a weird noise. But yeah, so you keep continuing to have it. Another thing too is, this is a good motivational thing too, is we don't have as much time as we think we have. That's one thing I will say. Robert Greene said this pretty recently, I believe, and the author of the 48 Laws of Power. And, the thing I like to think about, I remember I believe I made a vlog. I don't think it's still even on my YouTube channel, an old vlog. And I was probably 21 or 22 years old at the time. And I said, yeah, I'm 22 years old. I'm a quarter way to 88 years old. It seemed 25 years old or 20 years old. That seems young. But if you're 25 like I am, you're 1/4 of the way to 100. And I mean, sure, with new technology, maybe a lot of us would live till 100 or maybe even more. But, that's still 1/4 of the way there. That's still, even if you live till 80, if you're 20, that's, you're more than 1/4 there. If you're 40 years old, you're halfway to 80. And I'm not saying this to, be negative, but I'm saying this to make you realize you don't have that much time. If there's something you really want to do, and the thing is, the opportunities to do things, like if you really want to, if you're debating whether you should, backpack around South America or Europe or something, you probably should do that. You probably should do that while you're young, and you still can, because the responsibilities add up pretty quickly. And, it's easy, even the other trap you could fall into when you do have a lot of success, and is, say you buy a really nice house, say you buy a really nice condo, a really nice car. Those things would kind of keep you inclined, keep you attached to the country you're in. And that payment on that house or whatever, that could prevent you from being able to, live in Costa Rica for a few months, live in Bali, live in, wherever for a few months or a year or whatever you want to do. So that's something to really think about. I think that's, definitely an important thing. But at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, you're better off to probably have that success and then get that house and then screw up and lose everything and start over, rather than never making the money in the first place and just renting the whole time. You know what I mean? You're better off to have the success and lose it than never have it to begin with, I would say, because the experience you get from that is very, very distinct. And even, with the human mind, I feel like we forget a lot of things to a certain extent. I feel like sometimes really you get experience out of these things, but really the thing is, you believe you're experienced, you believe you feel like you can. Law of attraction, you feel like you can, and therefore you do. So sometimes experience really isn't the most important thing. I mean, when I was, when I was like in my, there's some things I was really, really good at when I was like 20 years old, 5 years ago or more. And there are things that I don't like do anymore. And I sometimes I'll try to redo them now and I'll just be like, wow, it's just awful. I mean, I'm awful at it. It's like I'm kind of starting over again. You still have that muscle memory a little bit, but you can lose things. You could lose things, definitely. You keep practice. I would say, once you learn something, whatever it is, do the minimum to keep where you are at it, to keep that skill level there. Say you learn a language, use the minimum amount at least of it to keep the proficiency you are, and for any skill theoretically, because you could lose things even when you're young and sharp. Think about it that way. Even when you're young and sharp, you could lose things even when you're in your 20s. So yeah, that's the important thing too. I hope use that kind of as motivation, I would say, in terms of the fact that we don't have as much time as we think we have. Use that as motivation to really focus, to really learn. And there's a lot of distractions. In life, definitely. I think being distracted is tough. It can mess you up a lot. And, we live in, Michael Saylor said this, a lot of people have said this, you don't have to be a genius to realize this, but we have a lot of distractions in our life. There's so much noise. There's so many venues, so many niches, so many different people to listen to. I mean, there's probably, if you're listening to vlogs on YouTube, self-help or whatever, there's probably so many other people you could be thinking about. Should I listen to Evan Aldo? Should I listen to so-and-so? Should I listen to, the list goes on and on. Who do you listen to? I don't know. I couldn't even tell you. Am I better than anybody else? It's hard to say. I mean, obviously you'd listen to the people you like the most, the people you resonate with the most, probably the people who have the niche that you're most interested in. That would make sense. But sometimes there's a lot of similar things. I mean, who to listen to sometimes. But, I kind of want to leave you on that. Reinvent yourself, to kind of summarize. You got to reinvent yourself. You got to constantly try new things. And you got to keep sharp, especially when you have success. You got to keep trying new things. You got to keep adapting. A last example, too, of it. And this is true. I heard this from somebody. I'm not really into Tiger Woods or golf, but I know Tiger Woods, when he already was the best golfer, already was considered the best golfer, already won the PGA Tour or whatever it is, he was trying to change his swing to make it even better when he was already the best. People would say, why wouldn't you just leave well enough alone? And they may be right, but that's one of the biggest things for success. They're always trying to find new ways, always trying to adapt and find new ways. And I think the good thing about that too is that lets new people kind of get into have success, because if they adapt and find a new strategy to do something, then they could move up. I think that's kind of why I had a lot of success too, with YouTube or with trading or whatever. I found a lot of new strategies. I found a lot of new ways to use Market Cipher or whatever. I found a lot of new ways to do it. You got to be unique in that sense. And I'm still trying to find new ways. I'm still always trying to improve. And I think that's very important. And, just realizing, even when you have success, you're going to want more. And, be grateful for what you have. Gratitude is really important too. Always remember kind of where you came from. Always remember where you started. That's how you get gratitude. Remember how far you've came. If you're frustrated, I'm sure you've made some type of improvements at whatever you're trying to do. And you got to remember too, especially with trading, even if you lost, even if you messed up, even if you lost a lot of money, made mistakes, look, there's worse things to blow money on. Believe me, a lot of worse things. Like, you learned something here. You're in a multi-trillion-dollar field. You have potential. If you're watching a video like this, you probably have potential to be very successful. You're better off to have blown that money trading or whatever, and you learned something from it. You're better off to have blown it that way than, drugs. There's so many worse things you could have spent that money on. Believe me. I mean, people lose. I've made more mistakes than I could count. Sometimes you kind of got to forget about it. That was one advice I've heard on that, because, when you think about the mistakes you made, everything's a learning experience. I've made a ton. We've all made a lot of mistakes, and you got to forget about them. Some of them are really cringy. You got to revise that, Yeah, that's a good technique. Revise those memories that you failed, revise them to make them winning memories. Make the thing. A main example, I think this was written in one of Neville Goddard's books. How a woman who, like, when she was a child, she fell off a swing and hurt herself, and it was a injury that she had for many years after, or whatever, into adulthood, and she kept revising that memory to make it so she didn't fall off the swing or something like that. You'd have to read more into it. I don't know the exact story, but it made the pain go away. Can you prove this? Probably not, but I'm just saying, the power of vision is very powerful. We have a lot more in our minds than a lot of people would realize. We have a lot more power individually than a lot of people would realize. So I want to leave you guys on that. It's been about 20 minutes. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please please subscribe to the channel if you are new. And thank you very much for watching. All right, guys, have a good one. Goodbye.